Well, the confidence by the people that have been here for 3 decades, while the governor's been here 18 months, and who've run up to $212 billion in debt against $30 billion in assets. Those are the people that aren't confident about how money will be spent?
They're the ones with the votes to pass a tax increase.
Okay, well, that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. Now, speaking of how the money would be spent, it recalls Jimmy John Leotud, the founder of the Jimmy John's sandwich.
Okay, sure.
So when he left Champaign for Florida, moved his corporate headquarters there, one of the things he said, which I found very instructive, and it still kind of rings in my head several years later, is, I've been successful in life. I'm happy to pay taxes, at a reasonable level. But the thing that really irks me about Springfield, about state government, is the money I send down to state government does not go to finance what they say it's going to finance. And I'm sick of being scammed by a state government I'm financing. Is he wrong?
No, I think the money probably is being used to pay for the things they say and for a lot more. So I don't think he's wrong. I just don't know that he's seen the whole picture. I don't know how much time he's spent actually seeing what state spending is all about.
Well, let me put this into concrete, because one of the things that people on both sides of the aisle fail to do sometimes is talk about policy in a way that's human being focused and tangible, and not just abstractions and numbers. So the developmental disability community in this state. You have politicians, both sides again, but Madigan's the House Speaker and Cullerton's the Senate President. They've both been there for, going on 4 decades. The argument that is made by politicians all the time, I'm going down to Springfield to make sure the truly vulnerable are provided for.
Right.
There are people in this society that need state services through no fault of their own, and we have a moral obligation to provide them. And I agree with that underlying premise. The problem is they're lying to people, because after all the money that's been taxed and spent and borrowed and spent, as I've just talked about, where does Illinois find itself? 47th in the nation in the provision of services to developmental disability, to persons with developmental disabilities or a person like that in their family. There's a 24,000 person waiting list for state services, where other states, including those around us that are taking families that are leaving Illinois for states that are more civilized, they get those services they apply for post haste. So in terms of the human cost of terrible public policy and reckless spending on things that I don't think people get a real appreciation are being spent versus where they think the money is and should be spent, how do you respond to that? Just to give a tangible example of people that are not being served in Illinois.
There is a need, and there probably should be more spent in that area to help bring that waiting list down, to make sure the services are there. I don't know within that particular area that there's waste in the money that's being spent. But when you go and sit down and try and push a budget to fund more for that, then they'll say, well, you got to take something away from schools or corrections or other forms of health care. In that tug of war has got us to where we are today. It's not a pretty picture.